Ever since I was a little girl with flour on my nose, standing beside my grandmother in her cozy kitchen, I dreamed of becoming a pastry chef, not just any baker, but someone who could craft desserts that told stories, that stirred emotions. With each bite, while others saw pastries as just sweets, I saw them as poetry made edible. Years of culinary school, late-night shifts in modest bakeries, and endless perfecting of technique finally led me to the job of a lifetime. I was hired as the junior pastry chef at Amelia, a prestigious 2 Michelin-star restaurant, under the command of none other than Chef Anton Dubois. To the world, Chef Anton was culinary royalty, sharp-featured, stylishly silver-haired, and armed with a French accent that could melt even the harshest critic. His cooking show, The Architect of Taste, had a massive fan base. His creations weren't just dishes, they were statements. Art on a plate. Abstract, intellectual, often cold but always praised. To me, he was a legend. And his kitchen? A cathedral of chrome and intensity. Precision ruled. Silence reigned. Every movement felt like choreography. I was in awe, determined to prove I belonged. But I had a secret. Not one of scandal but of flavor and love. A recipe passed through generations. Grandma May's midnight cherry tort. More than a dessert, it was a legacy. The formula lived in a leather-bound notebook, written in graceful cursive, each instruction laced with emotion. Fold the ganache gently, like you're comforting a child. Add cherry liqueur slowly, like whispering a secret. This dessert was everything. A fleurless dark chocolate base, a sour cherry center soaked in liquor, and a ganache so airy it vanished on the tongue. But its signature was the sugar web on top, a spun sugar lattice, kissed with a mysterious floral note only we knew. Grandma always said, "This tort is our story, don't share the secret with anyone who hasn't earned it." But in Chef Anton's world, my dessert had no place. He dismissed anything sentimental as old-fashioned. Adele, he would remind me, is no village bake sale. Our guests expect brilliance, not nostalgia. His tone was laced with charm, but the message was clear. My passion for soul-filled pastry was quaint, at best, a liability at worst. So I did what many do, I stayed quiet and sharpened my craft. I mimicked his style, executed his austere vision, and buried my own dreams under tempered chocolate and micro-herbs. For a whole year, I was the perfect subordinate, quietly brilliant, but overlooked. Then came the restaurant's annual staff gathering. It was a rare, relaxed event. Everyone was asked to bring a dish. And for once, I decided to bring a piece of myself. I spent 2 full days crafting Grandma May's midnight cherry tort. I arrived with it, nervous but proud, and placed it among the other sleek, modern contributions. It looked modest, old school. For a moment, no one touched it. Then curiosity struck. A line cook sliced off a sliver. His eyebrows lifted. He nudged a friend. Whispers began. Smiles widened. In less than an hour, the plate was empty, scraped clean. That's when Chef Anton wandered over, curious about the commotion. "What's this?" he asked, eyeing the crumbs. It was Amelia's tort, a server answered, practically swooning. It was amazing. Anton took the last fork left behind and scooped up a smudge of ganache. He tasted, and paused. Just for a second, the mask of elegance dropped. For a heartbeat, he wasn't the polished TV chef, he was just a man who'd tasted something real. But instead of praise, he simply nodded and walked away. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The following week, everything changed. After the party, the atmosphere shifted. Chef Anton, once distant and dismissive, suddenly became warm, attentive, almost paternal. He called me into his office more often, asked for my opinion on flavor profiles, praised my attention to detail. "Amelia," he said one day, reclining in his Italian leather chair, "I believe I've overlooked your potential. There's a raw elegance to your work. It's unrefined, yes, but sincere. I think it's time we nurture that." He dangled ideas of promotion, talked about mentorship, even hinted at the sous chef position becoming available soon. I was flattered. No, flattered isn't the right word. I was starving for recognition, and I was being served what I thought I wanted on a silver platter. Then he started asking about the tort. "Tell me about that cake," he said with a casual air. It was extraordinary, so nostalgic, yet modern. It felt personal. "Where does it come from?" I tried to stay vague. "A family recipe," I said, shrugging. He leaned in, his expression softening. "Surely, you can tell me more. We're colleagues now, friends." He asked about the ingredients, the layers, the floral infusion on the sugar, always with a professional tone, like it was just culinary curiosity. But I felt something shift in his eyes. He wasn't curious. He was hunting. I nearly fell for it, but Grandma's voice echoed in my memory. Only share the recipe with someone who's earned it, and Anton Dubois had earned nothing. From that moment, I stopped being flattered. I started paying attention. I watched how often he loitered near my station. I caught him watching me, not admiringly but like a thief scouting a vault. So I made a decision. I would give him what he wanted, sort of. A vintage bookstore. I found a journal that looked exactly like my grandmother's, leather-bound, aged, and beautifully worn. That night, I sat at my desk and began to copy the torte recipe, but with some subtle, strategic alterations. The butter? I changed from unsalted European style to salted American. The result would be a ganache prone to breaking to salty, unstable at room temperature. The floral infusion? I swapped rose water for orange blossom. Close enough in taste, but chemically very different. Orange blossom's volatile oils would wreak havoc on sponge sugar, making it fragile and moisture-hungry. Under heat, it would melt into a sticky mess. It looked perfect. I even added Fox sentimental notes in imitation of Grandma's handwriting. Fold the batter with care, like telling your first secret. It was almost poetic. I slipped the decoy journal into my work bag and waited. Sure enough, just days later, I was called away to handle a delivery issue. It felt like a setup. I returned to find my locker cracked open slightly, my bag disturbed. The journal was exactly where I left it, but now there was a smudge of cocoa powder on the corner of the page. He'd taken it. He actually did it. He'd gone through my belongings and stolen the recipe, my family's heart and history, without a second thought. The audacity was stunning. 2 days later, he called me into his office. His warmth was gone. No more mentorship. No more praise. He didn't even look me in the eye. Amelia, he said flatly, we're moving in a new direction. Something fresher. More modern. Your work has been fine, but your attachment to nostalgia isn't aligned with our vision anymore. He slid a white envelope across the desk. Severance papers. We're letting you go. Effective immediately. Just like that. No warning. No reason that made sense. I had become a liability now that he'd stolen what he wanted. I was disposable. I played my role, shocked, hurt, confused. But behind the mask, I was ice. He had no idea he'd just sealed his fate. I left that office with my head high. My job was gone, but so was his career, and he just didn't know it yet. The next 2 weeks were a blur. I cycled between rage and planning. Chef Anton thought he had won, that he had taken something sacred and made it his own, but he had no idea that I was several steps ahead. Then one night, as I sipped tea in my small apartment, a commercial lit up my TV screen, and there he was, Chef Anton Dubois, center stage, confident, dazzling. The promo was for the new season of Clash of the Confections, the biggest televised baking competition in the country. Millions of viewers, a prize of $250,000, and a full spread in Food and Wine magazine. The camera zoomed in on Anton's smug face. This season, he declared dramatically, I'm unveiling a long-lost family recipe. A torte passed down from my great-grandmother. A legacy dessert the world has never seen. I call it torte de mignon aux cerises, the midnight cherry. Torte. He even stole the name. My jaw dropped. I watched, stunned, as he weaved a completely fabricated origin story. He stood there with perfect lighting and dramatic music, lying with effortless charisma. He wasn't just baking it. He was turning it into his brand. And I started to laugh. This man had no idea what he was walking into. The recipe he lifted from my bag, the one he planned to debut in front of the entire country, wasn't just stolen. It was sabotaged. I got to work. A friend from culinary school now worked in TV production. One message later, I had a seat reserved for the live taping of the premiere episode. I didn't even need a front row seat. I just needed to be in the room when the trap was sprung. The day of the taping, I dressed with quiet purpose. Charcoal dress, neat bun, flat shoes. I wasn't here to be noticed. I was here to witness the spectacle. The studio buzzed with excitement. Cameras moved like dancers. Assistants scrambled, adjusting lighting and microphones. And then, the stage lights flared and the contestants walked out. There he was, Anton, charming, calm, every inch the celebrity chef. He didn't notice me in the crowd. He looked right past me. To him, I was no one, but I was about to become the ghost of every mistake he ever made. The challenge was announced. Make a dish that tells your story. Perfect. The host turned to Anton. Chef Dubois, we hear you have something special today? Anton stepped forward solemnly, hands clasped. Indeed, he said, accent smooth as aged wine. Today, I honor my great-grandmother H. Dubois. She taught me that food is memory. She left me one treasured recipe, passed through generations, a dessert never shared with the outside world until now. The midnight cherry tort. Lies. All of it. The cameras captured the moment like a coronation. 3 hours on the clock. The chefs scattered to their stations. Anton worked like a man possessed, confident, precise, rehearsed. He had my decoy recipe journal open beside him, pages pristine behind a plastic sleeve. He followed every instruction I had written, every wrong measurement, every doomed substitution. I watched as he used the salted butter. I watched him pour the orange blossom water into the sugar. I watched him shape his own failure with meticulous care. When the ganache was spread glossy and beautiful to the untrained eye, I knew the salt was already working, undermining its stability. It looked perfect, but it was doomed to melt and split under heat. And the sugar? The final showstopper. A fragile dome of sponge sugar threads spun delicately across the top of the cake, infused with oils that would react badly to the studio lights. He didn't know he'd created a ticking time bomb. The hosts counted down. He finished with seconds to spare, placing the final sugar strand like a crown. To the audience, it was stunning. To me, it was a masterpiece of destruction. And then we waited. The judges began their evaluations from the opposite side of the stage. I watched them move down the line, offering praise and critique, slowly making their way toward Anton's station. 10 minutes. That's all I needed. The studio lights were hot, unforgiving, designed for television, not for the delicate balance of unstable sugar and sabotage ganache. I watched intently. At first, the cake remained beautiful. The sugar dome glistened like spun glass. The ganache shimmered. But then I saw it. The first sag. A thread of sponge sugar drooped slightly, then another. The dome began to sweat. The orange blossom water in the sugar was absorbing moisture from the air, collapsing its structure. The strands started to fuse into a sticky web. The perfect crown became a melting mess. Then came the ganache. On the big monitors, a tiny bead of oil formed on the glossy surface. Another followed. The emulsion, destabilized by the salt, was starting to separate. What once looked silky now appeared mottled and greasy. The perfect illusion was beginning to rot under the spotlight. Finally, the judges arrived. Genevieve Black, the fearsome food critic, raised a single eyebrow at the sagging sugar cage. Well, chef, she said, voice sharp, this certainly looks ambitious. Though it appears somewhat compromised. Anton's jaw tensed. His practiced smile flickered. It's a delicate creation, he offered, trying to regain composure. Meant to be enjoyed at once. Let's not delay then, Genevieve said crisply. She, along with the other judges, a bubbly television baker and a silent, stern chocolatier, picked up their forks and took bites. I held my breath. Genevieve chewed slowly, her expression unreadable. Then, the ganache. It's split, she said flatly. The texture is greasy, grainy, and she paused, eyes narrowing, salty. Why is there salt in a chocolate ganache? Anton's face turned a shade paler. It's family tradition, he stammered, to balance the sweetness. It doesn't balance it, she shot back. It undermines it. It's an error, a fundamental one. The bubbly baker added. And this sugar work? The floral note is orange blossom, yes? It's overpowering the cherry entirely. This pairing is all wrong. It feels confused. The chocolatier nodded silently, then placed his fork down. The air in the studio went still. Genevieve delivered the final blow. Chef Dubois, she said with clinical precision, your reputation is built on precision and intellect. But this dessert is neither. It is technically flawed and conceptually clumsy. It feels like a recipe followed by someone who doesn't understand pastry science. Anton looked gutted. The camera zoomed in on his face, capturing every twitch of shame, every drop of sweat. His silence said everything. He had no defense, because the truth was those weren't his choices. They were mine. The recipe he claimed to be a family heirloom was nothing more than a decoy, a bomb disguised as brilliance. And he had walked straight into it, proudly, arrogantly, before a national audience. He was the first chef eliminated. The fallout was swift, social media exploded. Salty torti trended worldwide. Food critics dissected his dish with relish. Commentators speculated on how someone so seasoned could make such amateur mistakes. A week later, his restaurant lost a Michelin star, citing inconsistencies in execution. His show was quietly shelved. Sponsors backed away. Interviews were canceled. His empire cracked. I never saw him again. But in the quiet mornings of my bakery, yes, my bakery, opened with my savings and my fire, I get the occasional order for midnight cherry tort, the real one, the one only I can make. I measure the butter unsalted European. I fold the ganache with care. I lace the sugar with rose water, the true floral note passed down through generations. And as I finish, I sometimes think of Anton, of his face on that stage, of the moment his stolen glory turned to ash, and I smile. He tried to steal my legacy. Instead, he handed me something sweeter, justice, because revenge, I've learned, is best served cold on national television with a side of public humiliation and a cherry on top.